Hey, Ben Goessling, good morning.
Good morning.
Ben Goessling, good morning.
Good morning.
Kyle Rudolph, good morning.
Good morning, PA.
And happy early Father's Day to both you guys. And I should have wished it to Dante Culpepper and so on. But Father's Day is cool, man. We can sit back and chill, and I'll be calling races that day and everything. But, like my main man Henry over here, I'm sure he's got a $1,000 Father's Day gift up his sleeve for you, doesn't he?
No, it's awesome. And happy Father's Day to you as well. And
thank you.
Be down here at the Meadows at Mystic Lake for another Minnesota Vikings Foundation golf tournament. I joked with the media that it's still a little weird to me being on the Vikings Legends side of things. I came to so many of these. It was always like one of my favorite days in OTAs because we'd get out in the morning and we'd get out beyond the course, get to hang out with a lot of partners and raise money for great causes. And now being on the other side as a Vikings Legends is still a little weird. But like you said, got Henry down here with me today. Excited to have him on the cart and ride around and play some golf.
Kyle, when you were active, how competitive did this thing get between players? I mean, it's a fun day, obviously, but the competition probably plays into it a little bit.
100%. And you had your 4 or 5 guys who, were better players, specifically in this format, a scramble where you can hit the ball as far as you want. If those, like me specifically, if I have to play my own ball, I'm never beating Sam or Adam or Case or those guys.
Really?
But in this format, I'll hit a handful of really good shots. And it gets competitive. The other part is seeing the guys that have absolutely no business being on the golf course. I remember at one year, I think it was maybe early in Laquan Treadwell's career, and he had a driver on the green. He had no idea which club to grab, and there was a picture of him just putting with his driver. So that part of it was almost as fun as the competition side because you'd see guys that have never had a golf club in their hand,
right?
And they'd put their Vikings polo on and come out and ride around for 18 holes.
I remember one of those with Adrian too, seeing him with a club in his hand. This seems like a new thing for him.
That gentleman is way too strong to have a golf club, and it just looks like it when he's holding it.
What about Adrian playing basketball? I mean, because I've never played against him or anything, but I mean, I heard you guys in the locker room talk enough trash over the years. I'm sure Ben has too.
Yeah.
Where Adrian was no, here's the deal. I can beat all of you at everything if I just put my mind to it. That wasn't necessarily the case.
It was not the case. In Adrian's mind, that's how it worked. But we saw it in the celebrity softball game when Jenny Finch struck him out. You saw it in basketball. But, Adrian was a guy that was, you never really wanted to doubt him because you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess if you put your mind to it, you could probably figure it out. But, he's a guy that you just turn around and hand the football to. And
right.
He's really good at that.
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned Sam and Adam. Case Keenum was that good, huh?
Yeah.
I'd always heard the other two, but not that one so much.
Yeah, so Case actually, a lot of us play in the American Century Championship out in Tahoe every summer, and he's been in the top 5 out there, which if you're coming in the top 5, you're a really, really good player. And, him and Adam had some good battles on the course. Sam as well. They were all really, really good players.
You with the Green Bay Packers, you mentioned that Tahoe golf tournament, where maybe you knew Aaron Rodgers before, but you got to know him a little better there, fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, before you ended with the Buccaneers and with Captain Cool, Brady, were you ever really close to playing for the Green Bay Packers?
Aaron would joke about it every time I would see him about coming over, but not really. I mean, you think about timing wise, for me, when ultimately my time was done here, they had great tight ends over there. Robert Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, the ageless wonder, just signed for his 19th year in the NFL.
Where is he now?
Chicago.
He's still in Chicago.
Yeah, back in Chicago for year 19.
That's unbelievable.
It was one of those things Aaron would always joke about. Come on over. You got to come play for me. And I'm like, Aaron, that would be really difficult for me, but I guess maybe you could convince me. But it was. Those tournaments were always cool because, you get to hang out with greats across all sports. And you're in a relaxed environment. For me, playing with Kyle Lowry of the Raptors at that time and Vince Carter, and I'm a huge basketball fan, so being around guys like that, Charles Barkley, getting to play 18 holes with just greatness in other sports, it was a ton of fun. But the barriers are down, like the division rivals are down.
Yeah.
You can go out there and have a good time with Aaron and hang out and stuff like that.
Time for two more.
In terms of what things look like for you at this point, obviously kids take a lot of your time and being around here, but just being back and being connected to the Vikings, does this bring any memories back for you? What's it like just to be back around it?
Absolutely. Like I said, it's definitely still weird, being on the legends side, if you would. And I joke that they toss that term around so loosely. Like, there's a lot of legends out there. I do not consider myself one of them.
Well, no, you're one of the. I mean, you're a legend. You're not old. That's what you're struggling with, right? You tie legend to like 60, 70-year-old men, right?
Yeah. No, I just think it's a term that you earn over time, and a lot of those guys out there truly are legends of our game, and it's awesome. They were around when I was an active player, so to be here, to be back around, I was able to be at rookie mini camp, so getting back in the building, just seeing the people that have been here forever, that were here the whole time I was here, but then getting to know some of the new players, spending time with J.J. McCarthy, and getting to meet some of the new players and the guys that are going to be here for the next 10 years. So that's extremely exciting for me, a ton of fun. But then, at this point in my life, I was very fortunate to have something, in Altru, the platform that I started to raise money for other nonprofits, that I was so excited about doing that, it was easy for me to walk away from the game.
Right.
And that also keeps me around the game. So, for us, we have a partnership with the Minnesota Vikings. We have a partnership with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I work with guys on those teams and across all of pro sports.
Sweet.
So it ties the world of sports and philanthropy together, and that's really been my whole life outside of my family. So to be able to go into retirement and have something that I truly enjoy and get to do on a daily basis, it's a ton of fun.
That just seems like it's so tough for a lot of guys, too, when they're transitioning out of playing, to find the thing that is going to fill them up and keep them excited about life after being a professional athlete. How important was that for you?
Ben, it's huge to have. We identify as football players our whole life. It's what we are since I was Henry's age at 5 years old. I put the pads on for the first time in kindergarten. So from kindergarten until I was 33 years old, it was identified myself as a football player. And I think the two biggest things that guys struggle with when they leave the game is they don't have something that they're passionate about, like they were passionate about football. There's not a way to channel your time in a positive manner and work towards something, which we've always worked towards something our whole lives. Then the other part of it is like working towards something with people. We've been in a locker room every day for so many years, and to find a tight-knit community like the locker room is really hard in retirement. I've been very fortunate. I have a lot of good friends that, former players, we still keep really close contact, look out for one another, and that community aspect is a huge part of retirement.
Lastly, very special guest, Henry Rudolph joins us now, and he has a question he wants to ask Dad. Henry?
When are you going to ever stop?
When am I going to ever stop?
Are you ever going to be done? I don't know what Henry wants to be when he's an adult, but I'd say lawyer is not a bad idea. He's been brokering like a deal to get you to leave here for the last 5 minutes.
No, it's funny because, you mentioned Father's Day this weekend, people that know me and knew me when I was here saw the twins. They saw Henry born. They saw the twins around practice a lot. They saw them at games. It was huge for me to be able to have them around. All the things I did as a Minnesota Viking, but then also for us when we were going to the hospital, when we were doing different events, it was always a huge priority for us to take Finn and Andy and to bring Henry, and they might not understand what we're doing, but ultimately over time they will start to figure it out. And for me as a kid that grew up with nothing and had to work for everything that I had in life, it's really important. Yes, that 5-year-old's got it pretty good. He's got it pretty good. He's out here on a golf course with his polo on and his clubs in the cart. But it's also extremely important to us that they grow up and understand that not everybody's as fortunate as they are.
Right.
And it's extremely important for us to give back to other people. So he's out here with me today making a difference.
Quick 30 seconds, Henry. Quick 30 seconds, okay? So deliberate. Stop, take a look, and listen. Could you have played Division I basketball at Kentucky?
Yes, I could have.
Okay, stop right there. Stop right there. So 2012 you came in, right?
2011.
11, thank you. So from 11 through the end of your Vikings run, what was the last year?
My last year here was 20.
Did you ever come across a player? Now, Chad Greenway would say, yeah, it was me. But not me, Paul Allen, him. You ever come across a guy who could beat you one-on-one in basketball?
No.
How sheepish was that? Come on, man.
Well, I mean,
Greenway thinks he could beat you because of those hops.
He knows. Chad knows. I honestly haven't seen Justin play.
I suppose. We do anything that year.
We overlapped, but yeah, like we weren't allowed to hang out. It was like you go to work and you go home. But there's a lot of guys in the locker room. People hear it all the time, like. Every football player thinks they were a good basketball. We were joking about Adrian earlier, but I think there's a way that football players play basketball, and for me, like what I tell people is football and the skill sets of a tight end and the mentality of a football player certainly made me who I was as a basketball player. But, for me personally, I like to think that I was a skilled basketball player, not just a football player on the basketball court. And also one thing that people don't realize, that I was this height, but 40 pounds lighter.
Sure.
Like people see me now as a big tight end and they're like, oh yeah, you probably were like I wanted nothing to do with the paint. Like I wanted to run up and down the court and play in transition as a in basketball terms 6'8", 215-pound kid.
Yeah.
But also, my trump card, some people may say they've had Division I offers, and, certainly I got recruited and had opportunities to play Division I basketball. But the coolest thing for me was at 16 years old going to Europe and offering a pro contract to stay in Italy as a 16-year-old.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's always my trump card. Like a lot of guys have.
So you were Ricky Rubio Rudolph.
Well, it would have been me and Gallinari on the same pro team over there. We were both the same age, and they were like, hey, stay and play with this guy. And I called my parents. And my parents were like, absolutely not. You need to get back to the west side of Cincinnati. I can't believe we let you go to Italy by yourself anyways.
So wait, did John Calipari
So Coach K wasn't there. It was Coach Gillespie at that time.
Oh, well, I'm looking at the 09-010 Kentucky Wildcats roster. All right, because that's about when you would have been there if you came in 2011.
So 08 would have been my freshman year at Kentucky. That was my first year at Notre Dame.
Well, your sophomore year, I mean, you know this because you're an elite Wildcats.
John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins.
DeMarcus Cousins. Are you kidding me? Eric Bledsoe.
Yes.
What a badass team that was. Holy cow.
So Coach Cal came, his first year was my freshman year, and he had Patrick Patterson, the big that played in Houston for a long time.
Yeah.
And then that was like Coach Calipari's first big class. John Wall, Boogie Cousins, Bledsoe, and that's as a Kentucky basketball fan. I remember actually they came up and played Notre Dame, I think, in the NIT. So I had to go check them out, and it is my great uncle's numbers retired at Rupp. So we're excited about Coach Pope, and obviously the way things worked out with Coach Cal. Yeah. He's happy at Arkansas. I think the Kentucky fan base is excited to have one of their own in Coach Pope. And look, it's going to be different. I've gotten so used to the one and dones. Right. I don't think that's going to be the way we do things anymore. Obviously, college sports are very transparent at this time with people moving everywhere in the transfer portal and NIL. But I think it'll be more of a traditional basketball program than we're used to.
You're the bomb. I appreciate you, man.
PA.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Thank you, Henry Rudolph.
Great to see you.
Kyle and Henry
Let's go,
Rudolph from the Meadows at Mystic Lake, the Vikings Foundation Golf Tournament. Back after this. All righty now. 9 to noon continues. It's a Zach Halverson presentation on site at the Meadows at Maudie Lake. And the reason I call it Meadows at Maudie Lake is we just met a man named Maudie. And he was a very nice KFAN listener, and we appreciated him stopping by. Double B, Brett Blakemore, guides the Great Ship Love Covenant from FM 100.3 KFAN. And the scribe, Ben Goessling, sweet enough to come down and spend an hour with us, 3 segments, discussing myriad topics, including a Kyle Rudolph interview out of nowhere. And, that's what what happens at events like this.
Yeah, it was fun.
And it's Jared would have had that pot turned up 8 seconds ago, right? Hey, Zachary. But it's cool when they just roll up, you know?
Yeah, it was fun to see Kyle. It's been a while since. I mean, he pops around to things at TCO every once in a while, but it was fun to catch up with him. And here's some golf stories, which was enjoyable to hear who was winning this thing and then also who was not so much, because you kind of get the range at this thing.
And I'm not trying to talk negatively about the old regime of athlete sports, Vikings or whatever. But I mean, like, you know, there are certain players where, and it didn't happen today, but like when you go down the road of, hey, look at Justin Jefferson's contract. Hey, see, they get a little bitter, you know, because they kind of carved the way for a lot of this to take place. I also think a lot of the old guard, so to speak, is a little unrealistic, or conveniently forgetting that, you know, sometimes when they play, there were only 3 TV channels,
right? And
the advertising the whole thing was different. So I mean, you know, sign of the times, man. It just, you know, things change. But Paul Krause, a Hall of Famer, started the show today, and you know, it's I don't know what happened, but like he was very complimentary of Kevin O'Connell at one point. I'm not saying he wasn't complimentary today, but I asked him about him, and he's like, you know, I made myself available to help the safeties and stuff, and you know, he wanted to go in a different direction.
Sure.
I don't even know if different direction's the way to look at it with all the coaches they have and everything. But I'm just, you know, maybe the older I get, I'm just starting to get a feel for truly how much certain players are missing, like the game or the competition or the film study or something to do, man, you know?
Well, that was interesting to hear Kyle talk about that a little bit, because I mean, that's kind of when my ears perked up when he's talking about his foundation, because you do see so many players that struggle with that. I mean, what he described, where it's from age 5 until the point you retire, you're known as this, you are given certain credibility in our culture because of that. And certainly when you get to the NFL level, you are able to enjoy those things, and it comes in terms of status, it comes in terms of money, it comes in terms of the adulation, all of those things that go with it. It is really difficult, I think, for people to step away from that and say, okay, what am I now? And one of the things he talked about is just kind of finding that purpose that gives you something to be on a team with, gives you something to kind of go after. I think a lot of what he said is what a lot of athletes struggle to find.
Yeah.
And then when you see people doing what he's doing and making something of it and doing something that still has him, I think, connected to sports, connected to a cause that fires him up, it's fun to see, because that's not always the case.
How did the weekend go? How did Albertville go?
Yeah, it was we had the youngest team in that field in terms of our relay by a lot.
Yeah,
and we were quite a ways towards the back. We beat a couple of teams that got disqualified, but it was a great learning experience for those kids, because we had a freshman in the first leg of that thing, and there are a lot more teams on the track than there typically are, and there's a lot of bumping, a lot of contact, and just understanding how to handle. All right, I walk in and this place is full. That high school track meets generally don't have those kinds of crowds.
Wow.
They're, you know, it's a few parents that come to watch.
Yeah.
But this,
well, help me here. Is this like a postseason, like finals, section finals?
State championships.
So it's the state championships.
Yep.
So to get there, you need to have a good season.
Yep.
Qualify.
Yep. You have to qualify out of the section meet.
Thank you.
So.
Okay, so that right there, not only for freshmen, but seniors. Let's look at freshmen. Ooh, this is new. A lot of people here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like some players who come to the NFL from D2 and D3, they're like, wow, they have a second deck in their stadium. That's weird.
Yeah.
And so, like, these people. So when it comes to the seniors, well, I mean, they're nervous and they want to give their very best, because this might be it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, wow, what a great dynamic that weekend you just had.
Yeah, it was interesting because this group, all 4 of them are back. As I mentioned last week, it's a freshman, 2 sophomores, and then a junior that was in his first year really running distance races with us. So as I told them, like, this is almost, I mean, a lot of times when people walk into that thing for the first time, they're juniors and seniors, and there's pressure on them because I'm seated here, or this is my last chance, or whatever. And I said, we got this one. So now when you go back, there's no more wide eyes. There's no more of the, whoa, what does this feel like? How do I handle all of this? It's just more procedure to, for all of the rules. There's bigger events. They just have a lot of rules. It's the same thing in every sport. But it gave them an opportunity to do that, which is super helpful because I think it fires them up. And then the next time they go back, and they're gonna, because they're young and they're talented, you're not going back with the wide eyes. So as I told them all week, there's no downside to this. There's no disadvantage to being here. And you get a sense of what it's like to compete against the very best. And I think that's great for them to see this early in their careers.
When in terms of distance running, obviously there's training involved and having a certain body type, I would imagine.
Yep. Generally.
But when you're a really good runner or a really good jumper, okay, so God has gifted you with certain things and, that others don't have.
Sure.
So let's go and do the best we can. But as a coach, how do you get somebody, say they're used to running, I don't know, a mile.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we're going 5 or 6.
Yep.
And you need them just to build the crescendo or whatever you do.
Yeah, it's an interesting process because a lot of what you are doing is trying to change. I don't want to get super scientific with it, but you're trying to change the way people's cells work. I mean, you were basically, it's not like teaching a crossover dribble. I am trying to help you become a more efficient human being. My high school coach always talked about finely tuned machines. You were trying to build individuals that can run and not get fatigued as fast, can learn to put more force into the track. So every time they take a step, they go further, they go more effectively, they build more efficiency. So it's not just getting out and running.
Did you study that?
Oh, yeah.
Or were you just taught?
I was taught some of it, but it's funny. My high school coach was a biology teacher, and I had him for biology classes, and it was kind of like, whatever. And I'll have to learn the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, all the stuff you learn. But then you start coaching, it's like, oh, wait a minute. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Let's go. This is how this stuff works, and how do I build a more efficient cardiovascular system and all of that stuff plays into the sport. You have to have strong legs, you have to have strong heart, strong lungs, and there are different ways to basically trying to trust the system so that all of it responds. And it's generally we have 12 weeks in a season. It takes longer than that. So it's years that stack on top of years. But you learn it, and it's a lot of the hard part of it, a lot of the fun part of it is getting 16-year-olds to buy into a process that is going to take longer than their attention spans, longer than they even probably assume it will. And you trust me, trust the process, and we're going to get somewhere with this.
So the season is over.
Season is over.
All right. So, when it comes to those going to the next level, either with track and field or scholastically,
right,
do you forge relationships with your athletes and their families so that, even low key, you kind of help with that?
Yeah, you do. I mean, there's no doubt. Whether it's helping kids get ready for college, helping them apply for colleges, I tell them a lot, hey, your coach has done a little bit of writing, so if you need somebody to take a look at your application essay, I know a guy that can help with that. So
you went to the copy desk for the kids.
Well, a little, you end up being the editor a little bit.
You became Judd Zolgad working their life agate page.
I've done it. Hey, we need to change that. And I tell them all the time, I'm not writing it for you. It's not going to be easy. I'm going to give you a tough edit, but it's going to be better. So whether it's those things or, getting invited to kids' weddings, staying in touch with kids for years after the fact. And I mean, that's the stuff that's really fun. I was at a wedding for one of my former athletes last year.
How long have you done this?
This is my 12th season.
12th season coaching Apple Valley High School track.
Yep.
Okay.
12th season there and 12 seasons covering the Vikings. So
that's super cool.
Time. It's been a long time.
So help me with this before we pause and we chat about some football. What is happening at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center today? You're like, all right, I can come out and help, no problem, cool, but we're going to have access on Tuesday. Then it's like, well, I can stay as long as you want. Now the access is Wednesday. And I see Brian O'Neill over there and Garrett Bradbury over there. Saw Blake Cashman walk into the get. I'm like, okay, well, what's happening here?
Well, so they moved OTAs, and they flipped the OTA and minicamp schedule. Generally, the last week of the off-season is the minicamp, obviously, where it's mandatory and everybody has to be there, and then they send them home for the summer. What Kevin O'Connell ended up doing this year was Minicamp was last week, and every player that has been in the league 5 years or longer, which includes the names you mentioned, they don't have to be there this week. So it's a little more of a developmental week for younger guys, which I suppose gives them more time to focus individually and also gives players that are kind of saying, hey, I've done this a lot. I don't need to be here for the last week of this.
Yeah.
They're a little more able to say, yeah, go ahead and enjoy your last week. Go play some golf, but it's not required for you to be here.
Any intel on like who's played in the league 5 years or more and is there? Because they might be trying to. They might be trying to like, hey, I'm here. What about me? I'm here. I had the option to not be here.
Yeah.
Try to win favor or get more work or whatever.
Yeah, there's probably going to be a little bit of that. I'm sure you'll see a few guys. I mean, with OTAs typically, reporters get access to 1 day of the 3 in a week. Minicamp, we get the whole thing. But our day to be out there is tomorrow. So, yeah, you'll see some of that, I think. I think there'll probably be some guys that realize, I mean, all of this stuff is this way with OTAs. It's optional, but it's not really that optional, either because you have a workout bonus in your contract or it's just understood that we're going to take the best 53 and everything you can do to set yourself up for that, I think, is something somebody's going to do. There are going to be guys that have guaranteed deals that probably say, you know what, I'm good. I know I'm good. I don't need to go. But there'll probably be some that either want the extra work or just to make a good impression. I would expect to see there.
I have been pining to ask you this for a week. How did the Minnesota Vikings determine Justin Jefferson's value and subsequently set up for the future?
Sounds like something I wrote about.
That's a headline right here on your at Ben Goessling via Twitter.
That's the Twitter tease.
Yeah, it's Twitter tease, so you didn't write it, but nevertheless, I haven't read this, and I apologize because I have all your albums. But explain this story.
Well, so a lot of that came from last week when we talked with Kwesi after the Jefferson deal got signed, and I just asked him, because we've heard about it, we've talked about it. There's this school of thought of, hey, when these receivers are coming out of the draft and being as effective as they are, especially right away when they're cheap, why do you then go pay the premium for Justin Jefferson? Why wouldn't you just say, we can go get Jordan Addison, we can go get another rookie to come in here and we can kind of just cycle through them like people do with running backs? I mean, there is that school of thought out there. So I basically said to him, what is your response to that line of thinking? And he essentially said, look, I've done all the math. I have the numbers in here in terms of efficiency and what a guy is worth, and there are places where they calculate that out by the dollar. We don't do it quite that way, but I know what the numbers are. It's harder to do it in football, he said, but the thing that he pointed out is that in his order of preference to develop a roster, it's drafting and then re-signing your own and then free agency from other players, from other teams, and then trades. That's the return on investment as he sees it. So signing Justin Jefferson, even if it's as expensive as it was, in his mind is still a more efficient play than having to go get a veteran from another team. Yes, if you can do it with a draft all the time, that's great. But his point is this is still a good bang for your buck, especially when you're getting a player that's turns 25 next week and you're signing him through his prime. You're not signing him through his early 30s, at least with this deal. So that was a lot of what he had to say. It kind of just got into the thought process that they've had of let's get transformational players, what we think are transformational players, at all of these important spots, and let's build from there.
And secondly, before we pause, something that's been percolating within my mind also was thinking about it at the end of truly one of the most eventful off seasons, let's say in Minnesota Vikings history. It's becoming more clear, easier to see the plan. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell, let's say, charted for 2 years. Get young, controllable talent at premium positions and build around it. That sounds like a good insider for a Sunday.
Yeah.
What for those who may have missed it? What was in there?
What you just described sounds like that. The sentence sounds familiar.
commas are in the right spot. Yeah. No split infinitives. I mean,
copy editors did their job.
We're solid here.
Dressed it up. Yeah, a lot of it was just, like I said, kind of looking at this process they've used over the last 2 years, because you've seen snippets of it where it's, okay, they're taking a harder line with Kirk Cousins, or they're moving on from Adam Thielen, they're moving on from Eric Kendricks. They're not signing players in certain spots, and they're investing in others. And when he's talking, it's like you can sort of see this whole plan, because everybody has kind of said, what are they up to? What's the plan? What is the overall strategy? And it just hit me when he was answering some of those questions, like, yes, now you can start to see, agree or disagree with it. We'll see if it works. The wins and losses are ultimately going to determine whether it did, but the overall overarching strategy of the whole thing is a lot easier to look at. So the story is mostly a look at what they've done, how they spent their resources, what is the approach they're taking to this whole thing, and how does it maybe differ from what happened in the past, because there are some big differences there. And they come out of this offseason, you've now got a quarterback under team control, you've got an edge rusher under team control in Dallas Turner, you've got Justin Jefferson signed, you probably will have your left tackle signed in the not-too-distant future. You still need a corner, but those are probably the 5 most important positions in football: quarterback, receiver, pass rusher, tackle, corner. And they're going to have probably 4 of those 5 with young, controllable players locked in the not-too-distant future. So when you have that, I think they look at that as sort of the foundation of what you need to do, and then you fill in the rest of it from there.
The Scribe joining us at 10:40, and I'm Paul Allen. We are at the Meadows at Mystic Lake for a Vikings Foundation golf tournament. Gabe Henderson will join 9 to noon, about 35 minutes from now or so on. He'll be at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, chat some NBA finals and stuff like that with main man G. But around the corner is Kevin O'Connell modeling the Minnesota Vikings after the San Francisco 49ers. And what did the Scribe think of J.J. McCarthy in those 3 days of mandatory minicamp? Don't leave. We'll be right back. With the mandatory minicamp, Mr. Scribe, what did you see from J.J. McCarthy that just, I'm not saying makes you think he can play week 1 or makes you think 2025 is an absolute for when he plays? Just like when you watched him run around or listen to him and stuff, what'd you see in here?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the positives are the ones that everybody talks about. The arm strength is there, able to make throws on the run. I think that will be a component of this that's interesting to watch, because you have not seen Kirk Cousins do that as much as you probably will see J.J. McCarthy do, just being able to extend plays and make things happen when he is moving and the pocket breaks down. I think that's going to be something he has to learn how to do at this level, but there's more of that in his – that club is in his bag, to use the golf metaphor of the moment, in a way that we haven't seen in the past. I think the piece of it that's going to be the trick for him is still learning how to put touch on the ball when he has to do it. And you saw that particularly last Wednesday, where he missed some throws that I think will be kind of a learning moment for him, because that kind of stuff is still where he probably needs to get better, is just being able to put throws into tight spots, being able to feather the ball over a linebacker and drop it in a bucket. That kind of stuff is, I think, where they're still wanting to see him get better and where they want to work with him. So a lot of it, he looks like a rookie, but he also looks like a first-round pick that you see the ceiling there, and I think that's pretty much to be expected at this point.
So I don't know if you read the story, and it's about Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, and I haven't followed their minicamp or whatever, but it's like the headline that I saw, and I didn't read the anti-Vike, Sean Payton's quotes out of it or anything, but it's Bo Nix on track to be week 1 starter.
Okay.
All right, so that's the headline. Judd gives the headline, and Ben writes the story. So I didn't read the story. But like with New England, you're not seeing Drake May on track.
Yeah.
J.J. McCarthy on track. So say Bo Nix rolls out week 1 for Denver. Say he looks pretty good this year.
Sure.
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but say he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to cause we should have taken Bo Nix, or do you think people will be patient enough to see the other side of the equation?
So what you're asking is, will fans handle the quarterback situation and expectations of a rookie quarterback with discretion and perspective? That would not probably be my expectation there.
So fans should root for Bo Nix to be terrible.
Well, if you want to avoid that discussion on your favorite social media platform, probably. There will be some of that. If he comes out and plays well, I'm sure there will be some of those takes. They tend to bubble up from the places that they come from when those things happen. You could take the C.J. Stroud approach, and every team is a little bit different here too. I think the Broncos maybe don't have quite the backstop or the plan to say, let's take this out for a 2 or 3 year stretch that the Vikings do. There are different ways to do it. You can do the C.J. Stroud thing. You can do the Jordan Love thing. Both those guys, I think, are going to be really good quarterbacks near the top of the league this fall. And one played right away, and one sat for 3 years. I think some of it just depends on your individual context. And the trick to measuring these things, if Bo Nix comes out this fall, and however he looks, is to not apply one context to the other, because they're different teams, they're different kind of levels of expectation of when they want to be competitive, and all of that stuff, I think, plays into the decision you make on that quarterback.
What are you doing the evening of August 12th through the morning of August 18th? Or you're going to be in Cleveland?
Oh, the Cleveland thing.
You're going to be you're going to be there for the joint practices, right?
Well, Mark Craig, I think, is.
I love Mark, but no Ben?
Well,
no
we'll
Scribe
see.
in the lobby sitting down with Flores for 90 minutes?
I don't know that I'm going to do. So Mark is from Cleveland, I should say. So
covered the Browns with Belichick.
For him, yes, he did. He was covering the Browns when Bill Belichick was at the very beginning and was not a very good coach, or at least not a very successful one.
Right.
I think he's doing that. I think whether I'm there or not is still in discussion.
Okay.
But, yeah, I think that's the plan for the moment.
Well, I think the joints are August 13 and 14.
Yep. Yeah, like Wednesday, Thursday.
Or something, or 14, 15. Then the game's like 17.
Yep.
And the reason I ask is because we were talking about the Broncos, and I'm trying to think of the receivers. Okay, Tim Patrick got hurt, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy. Well, Jerry Jeudy is now with Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's the airplane guy, Haslam. Jimmy Haslam got all his albums. It's like whether it's him or Andrew Barry, their GM. Now, I think Barry and Stefanski just re-signed.
Yes, they just got extensions.
There you go. I mean, it's every offseason. I mean, at least from a name value standpoint, they ain't afraid to bring in these big names.
True.
I mean, Zadarius Smith, he's still there, I believe. Big name.
Yep.
Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper. Deshaun Watson with that big splashy trade. I mean, it's like, okay, we need a backup running back. Let's not get Ty Chandler. Let's not get Kene Nwanwu or David Palmer. Let's go get Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
They just always have these big names there, and I'm looking forward to getting there and seeing what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting because that team, I mean, defensively is awfully good, and they have a good offensive line as well. So for the Vikings, I think those joint practices, and that'll be the work. Obviously, you're not going to see any of the starters play in the game, but the work in those couple of days, probably a little bit like what we saw with San Francisco a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
where
that was good.
It's going to be a little more chippy. Yep. I would expect it's going to be a little more physical.
What's thud? With this is a thud practice.
Yep.
So I mean, somebody explained it to me too, when the Niners were here.
Thud tempo.
Okay, because the Niners on the second day when it started to get nasty,
it's thud plus.
I mean, I don't know if Next Level Shanny said to KOC or whatever, like, come on, let's go a little bit, make this a game. KOC, all he wanted was thud practice. Yep. And it got to a point where it started to get a little nasty.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they ended it early, but there was a comment. Kevin was walking away up to his office after his press conference, and you or somebody asked him a question about the tempo or whatever, and he got a little agitated.
Yeah.
And he's walking up the stairs, and I think I heard him say, instead of worrying about having full contact practice, maybe they should learn to cover Justin, or cover the bleeping pass, and we can start there. I'm like, hey, wow, I've never heard KOC like that.
Yeah.
So, but thud. So what is thud?
Well, thud is when you're hitting but not taking somebody to the ground. I mean, it's obviously you're hitting with less force, but you've got pads on. There's contact. There's physicality, but you're not driving anybody to the ground. I think would be the layman's. I don't know if there's
so the Browns joint's going to be thud,
but yes, I would think it'd be thud.
It'll be thud. I mean, because Kevin, Kevin ain't going to let his guys get out of control, and either is Kevin.
No,
Kevin or Kevin.
Yes, I think this will have a.
I can't believe you're not going. I mean, Mark Craig's writing immortality. Okay, so don't get me wrong here, and I love Mark, and he has a great appreciation for the old school and history and all that.
Yep.
And Mark's a quality writer. You're the scribe.
Yeah.
I mean, bro, we got Kevin Stefanski, Bill Musgrave, Chad O'Shea.
Yeah, it's a lot of familiar
who was
faces.
the offensive coordinator for Brian Flores when he was in Miami.
Right.
Okay, and they parted, whether they parted well or whatever, who knows? We got Za'Darius.
Yep.
Kevin Rogers.
Yeah.
Who was Brett Favre's position coach when he was here.
Predates me.
Are you kidding me with this? That you're not there with all these stories?
Well, yeah.
Kramer better be there.
There may be. We're still in negotiations about whether I go for part of it, but we also have a couple other stories we may be chasing, so I may go use that to go fly other places.
Well, you got some big, don't you? So
maybe.
we're all there in Cleveland. We're in Cleveland longer than we're in England.
Yep.
So we're in Cleveland at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the second time, and all of a sudden I look at my phone and you've dropped some Christian Darrisaw just signed this.
I don't know that it'll be that.
That's why he didn't go.
Well, I don't know that it's going to be that. We've got a couple things in the hopper.
Let me ask you this. I'd like to keep you another segment after this. Do you? Okay.
There's no OTA,
cool.
no OTA access today, so I'm good.
When we return, part 2. Is Kevin O'Connell and are the Minnesota Vikings mimicking the team after the San Francisco 49ers? And we'll explain what we mean after this.